Hi crafters! Okay, today we are going to make this daisy card. I love this card. I think it's really cute and yet it's clean and simple. So we're going to use a couple of different techniques on here. We're going to be doing some embossing along with a bleach technique. Now I've already cut out all of the cardstock. We have your standard base 8.5 by 5.5. The black layering piece is cut at 5.25 by 4. And the peachy orange colored piece is cut at 5 by 3 3/4. And this is the piece that we're going to stamp our image on. So since we're going to emboss it, I'm going to use my powder tool. I'm going to be kind of obnoxious and put it everywhere because it's a big image. And the nice thing about the embossing powder is that it will keep the embossing powder from sticking to places that you don't want it to stick. Alright, the stamp set that I'm using is Daisy Thanks from Stampendous. I love this stamp set. Both the stamps, the sentiment, and the main stamp we're using out of that stamp. All I'm doing is inking it up with Versamark since we are going to be embossing using an embossing powder. We need something sticky and that dries slow. And since I don't have a black pigment ink, people use pigment ink a lot when they emboss because it's really slow to dry and allows you that time to get the embossing powder on there and the heat tool used before it dries. So I'm using my stamp press because it will give me a little bit more flexibility in being able to really press down. Since this is a large image, I want to make sure that I get all of it down there. Where an acrylic block is really stiff and it doesn't give it all, this has a little bit of give in it and allows you to really press down. I typically will hold it just a little bit longer than if it were regular ink. I seriously doubt that you can see that on the camera because it's kind of a watermark effect on there. Already got my black embossing powder out. So let's cover this. Make sure that we get it everywhere. Usually hit the back to get off a little extra that's on there. And I still see a little bit that I'm not happy about. So I always keep small little paint brushes in my jar on my desk so that I can get any little tiny flakes. Alright, there we go. It's our stamped image. Let's heat it up. Use a heat tool. You can see it's kind of a flat look, and as I heat it, you don't want to leave the heat tool in one spot or you could burn the paper. So I'm just kind of move it around till it gets nice and heated up. And then hopefully you can see how it starts to turn shiny. Once it's turned shiny, you want to remove it from that section because you could burn the embossing powder as well. So just move it all around. Like I say, it's a large image. I think I pressed too much and got a little smearing, but that's okay. You can get the gist of it. And the reason that I'm using the black embossing powder instead of just using a why can't I think? The Memento Tuxedo black ink, for example, that doesn't smear when you're using markers and stuff, or this stays on. When you bleach, it will potentially smear. So I like to go ahead and emboss with the embossing powders, and I know that the bleach won't affect that at all. Now normally I would use a water brush, and I can't find either of my water brushes, so This will work with a blending pen. If you have a blending pen, like I say, you can use a water brush or a blending pen. I have put just a little bit, I don't know if you can see, that's like even way more than I even need, of bleach, straight bleach. It's not diluted with water or anything, into this container. It doesn't matter. It can be Clorox or it can be generic. Any bleach you have. So I'm going to just take my blending tool and stick it in the bleach and kind of come in here and just kind of use it like a marker. It's kind of hard to see where you've colored until it starts turning. What's fun is you really don't know what you're going to get. It doesn't always come out just straight white. You know, you could get streaks, or in this middle section I'm not going to take a bunch of care to make sure it's perfect, because in some of these other, what you do want to do, and which is what I think I just did, you want to be careful, because if you go outside the edges it will show up, and I think I did as I was talking, but we'll let it slide this time. So all I'm doing is going in and painting it. This particular flower, the largest one, I'm doing it all and making sure that I get all of the leaves, and then you're going to see I do a little bit different technique on the other flowers, because you know, not all flowers are perfect, and on the sample card that I made a while ago, I tried just doing a little bit of streaking. So on here, instead of making sure that I'm getting every little piece, I'm just hitting sections of it. Now, I did just feel myself go outside the lines a little bit on one of those, but one thing that this will do is kind of give it a little bit of a watercolor look as well. And I'm going to do the same thing up here. I'm not going to try to hit every area, because I really like that streaked look as well. So you can see that, and then when it is streaking and when you see it, you can say, oh, I think I do want a little bit more there, and you can just kind of go back with your blending tool or your excuse me, your water pen, whichever you're using. So you can see that those are starting to turn. It's kind of getting the lighter colors, and you can see, hopefully it'll show up on the camera that these are not all colored in. There should be little streaks of kind of the peachy color showing through on these bottom two flowers. Okay, so we're going to adhere this to, you can see that the card warped some too. I held the heat gun really close to it, and oftentimes your card will warp a little bit. So I'm going to make sure and use some extra adhesive on the back when I go to adhere it to the black piece. I'll put some in the middle to make sure that it gets all nice and flat on there. Now that I've got this black card that I'm working on, it's hard to see where my black piece is. Got black on black here. Alright. Yes, I definitely warped that. Okay, so let's go ahead and put, I'm going to use the Memento Tuxedo Black for the sentiment. Now the sentiment in this set came as one long stamp. It says thanks a bunch. I wanted to layer it. I had wanted thanks on the top. It's fine, totally fine to cut your acrylic stamps like this. I cut the words apart a lot, and it allows you to really make them even more versatile. So let's ink that up with the Memento Tuxedo Black. Hopefully I left myself enough room. Barely. There we go, thanks a bunch. I could have embossed it, but I'm like, you know, I embossed the focal point, so you don't want to necessarily overkill and emboss everything. I used the Jillibeansoup bean stalks. I can't talk and do this at the same time. Twine, or baker's twine. I like to, some people just use the their tape runner on the back. to hold down ribbons and things, I tend to use Scotch tape. I just trust it more. And on this one, I'm intentionally going at a slant. I'm going to go around 3 times. So I kind of want that effect. I like the look when, and then I'm going to put like a little button in the corner. So let's get that taped down. Nobody's going to see it, so I don't really care what the back looks like. Alright. Now we will adhere it to our card base. This would probably look really good popped up as well if you wanted to use pop dots on it. I'm just going to make it flat. I love these colors together. Okay, last thing we have to do is to put our button on. Put a little button down there in the corner. Get a little more of the baker's twine. And then show you a tip that I have. This is a thread, or a flossing threader. Hopefully it will show up. It's hard to see. It's got a loop on the end, and that's how I get threads and all kinds of things into buttons or small holes. This is just excellent for that. They're kind of hard to find because it's the threaders that you want, not the actual floss. And then you just poke it in the back of the button and pull it through. So there I have one side. And grab it in the loop. This is really much easier than I'm making it look. I'm not capable of talking and doing this at the same time. I had this exact same problem at our weekend, October 13th, when I was showing people. They got little embellishment bags, and in it was one of these little threaders, and I thought, I'm sure they want to know why they have dental hygiene in their little embellishment goodie bag. But that's why. It's great for taking like extra thick ribbon if you're trying to get something thick through a smaller hole. I have used these for years. To me, it is a vital tool. And then my favorite glue for gluing things down, even though it does many other things, is glossy accents. So I'm just gonna put some on the back, and this stuff lasts so long. I've been using this one bottle for like a year, and I use glossy accents on like everything. And there we go. So there you have it. Here's our finished card. We've done the embossing along with the bleach technique. Hope you enjoyed it. You can find all of the products that we used here listed below in the description on YouTube, as well as over at stampinmania.com. Thanks for visiting. Bye-bye.